Picture this, the year is 1856. A young prophetess, Nankawuz, tells her people that if they slaughter their cattle and destroy their crops, the ancestors will rise, the whites will be driven into the sea, and a new golden age will dawn. In our history, tens of thousands obeyed, over 400,000 cattle were killed, food supplies vanished, and famine struck. By 1858, the Xhosa were starving, broken, and Britain swept into Finnish conquest. But here, the prophecy takes a different turn. Instead of blind obedience, Xhosa chiefs debate carefully. Some argue, we cannot kill all, we must keep herds for survival while honoring the prophecy with sacrifices. A compromise emerges. Half the cattle are slaughtered in ritual, the other half hidden deep in valleys, guarded by warriors. Crops are stored secretly in stone silos, not burned outright. Nankawuz's prophecy is reinterpreted not destruction, but preparation. The Xhosa, instead of collapsing into famine, unite under a vision of resistance. The British expect chaos. Instead, they face renewed strength. When colonial officials march east in 1857, anticipating starving Xhosa, they meet well-fed warriors. Spears glint, rifles crack, and ambushes shatter redcoat lines. The cattle killing, once a tragedy, becomes a rallying cry. The people sacrificed, the ancestors answered, the land defended. Zoom into lives. A Xhosa herdsman, once ready to slaughter all, now hides cattle in mountain caves, smiling as calves are born in secret. A warrior paints his body with ochre before battle, convinced the prophecy made him invincible. A British settler, expecting empty villages to loot, stumbles into ambush and flees in terror. A young girl in the valleys listens to elders chant that the ancestors walk beside them, and she believes. Culturally, survival transforms Xhosa identity. The prophecy, far from discrediting the people, becomes mythic proof of unity. Songs and dances commemorate not famine but deliverance. Ancestors are revered as guardians who demanded sacrifice but granted strength. Nankawuz herself, instead of being condemned, is honored as the prophetess who steered her people to victory. Her name becomes sacred, her vision retold as divine intervention. Religion shifts as well. Christianity, which in our timeline spread in the famine's aftermath, struggles here. Missionaries cannot explain away victories attributed to ancestors. Instead, Xhosa spirituality surges, blending prophecy with traditional belief. Diviners, healers, and prophets rise in influence. A faith emerges that promises not submission but triumph. Zoom again. A missionary in Grahamstown writes angry letters to London, lamenting that the savages grow stronger in their heathen ways. A Xhosa elder leads rituals at dawn, declaring that ancestors have opened paths to freedom. A mother, who once wept slaughtering her herd, smiles as hidden cattle emerge, fat and safe. A British trader, once dominant, now negotiates nervously with Xhosa chiefs as equal. Globally, the ripple widens. Britain, embarrassed by defeat, hesitates in southern Africa. Without Xhosa collapse, the Cape Colony's expansion halts. Boer settlers pushing east are checked by Xhosa patrols. The dream of white dominion from Cape to Natal stumbles. Instead of being fragmented, the Xhosa Confederacy rises, building alliances with Zulu, Sotho, and Tswana. Southern Africa, instead of falling piece by piece, forms a block of resistance. By the late 19th century, as the scramble for Africa begins, Europe finds Southern Africa less vulnerable. The Zulu Empire still clashes with Britain, but this time the Xhosa march alongside them. At battles like Isandlwana, it is not just Zulu spears but Xhosa rifles that break British squares. Defeats multiply. London newspapers groan that Africa bleeds empire. Economically, the Xhosa prosper. Cattle herds grow again, their wealth reinvested into trade. Guns and horses flow from Portuguese Mozambique and Boer traders. Gold and diamonds, discovered later, enrich Xhosa chiefs instead of British companies. Kimberley and Johannesburg rise under African banners. Instead of laboring in colonial mines, Africans mine for their own states. Zoom once more. A miner in the Rand carries gold to a Xhosa chief, not a British baron. A warrior drills with imported rifles, his regiment disciplined like European armies. A settler farmer in the Cape grumbles that Africans now dictate prices and terms. A Xhosa queen mother advises her people to balance tradition with new wealth, keeping culture alive amid modern change. World War I unfolds differently. The Xhosa Confederacy enters as sovereign ally, not colony. Its troops fight in Europe under their own flag, their courage legendary in the trenches. At Versailles in 1919, Xhosa delegates argue that Africa must remain free and they have the power to insist. The colonial carve-up falters, World War II follows suit. When Hitler preaches Aryan supremacy, the existence of a powerful African state undermines him. Southern Africa fights with the Allies, not as subjects but equals. Factories in Xhosa cities produce weapons, tanks, and planes. African pilots fly over North Africa, African regiments liberate Ethiopia, and when the UN is founded in 1945, Xhosa leaders sit proudly at the table. Zoom one final time, a Xhosa pilot in 1942 paints ancestral symbols on his Spitfire before flying into battle. A British general admits bitterly that Africa fights not under empire but for itself. An African-American visitor in 1950 marvels at the strength of a free African state, carrying hope back to civil rights movements at home. A Xhosa grandmother tells her grandchildren the story of the prophecy not as famine, but as the spark that saved them. By the late 20th century, South Africa is transformed. Instead of apartheid under white minority rule, the land belongs to Africans united under Xhosa and allied nations. Segregation never takes root because colonizers never dominate. The economy, fueled by gold, diamonds, and industry, stands among the strongest in the Southern Hemisphere. The term Third World never applies. Would this world be better? For Africa, profoundly no famine, no dispossession, no apartheid. For Britain, humbling its empire smaller, its myth of inevitability cracked. For the world, inspiring proof that unity and belief can resist conquest. In our timeline, the Xhosa cattle-killing was a tragedy, exploited by empire. But had it ended differently with preparation, balance, and survival, it could have rewritten South Africa's fate, ensuring not collapse but strength. So, what do you think? Could the Xhosa have turned prophecy into power, or was the weight of empire too heavy? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe to Sheriff Reactions. Hit the bell for daily flips, where we explore not just what happened, but what might have been.